Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our entitled parents. In today's episode, I get Karen sent to the principal's office, and this time, she doesn't get the kids. Parents not letting me move out. 23F. Need advice. It's my birthday, not yours. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I get Karen sent to the principal's office, and this time, she doesn't get the kids. During my last few years of high school, I delivered newspapers every morning. The money wasn't great, but it was my first job. I really enjoyed the peace and quiet that comes with being awake before the sun rises. It was an enjoyable experience. However, there were downsides. For example, we had to go around once a month to collect payments, which was a real pain. If you can't get a customer to answer the door, they can't pay you. If a customer decided to simply stop paying you, there was nothing that you could do about it. The subscription could only be canceled by the customer themselves, so if someone decided not to pay you, the money was taken out of your earnings and the delivery person was the one stuck with the bill. Unfortunately, this was extremely common. This would eventually become the reason I quit, since I could not afford to work 2 hours a day and not get paid for it. One morning as I arrived home from finishing my route, my mother was extremely agitated. My boss had called and woke her up 15 minutes earlier because he had started receiving calls from the paper saying that several customers on a route connected to mine had called to say they had not received their paper, and that this had happened several times this week, so he had to fire the person on that route. He wanted to know if I could take over the route. The route was only about half the size of the route I was currently doing, and would only add about 30 minutes a day to my trip, so I agreed to take it. The first week passes pretty uneventfully. One morning during the second week of doing my new route, a few stops before I finish the route, as I am heading back over to my bike after hitting a string of houses, I can hear a woman's voice calling out, "Excuse me? Hey you. You say me?" I turn around to see a woman. She's coming down the driveway in a t-shirt and underwear, holding a newspaper in one hand and using her free hand to try to pull the bottom of her t-shirt lower to preserve some sense of modesty. I recognize her of the substitute teachers at my high school. "Excuse me, what is this?" she says, holding up the newspaper. I stood there confused for a moment before replying, "I'm sorry, Miss Karen, but I don't understand dash." She cuts me off. "I thought I already told you. If you guys are going to fire my daughter for being a little late one day, then I do not want your paper." Still a little confused, "I'm sorry, Miss Karen, but I have only had this route for a few days, and I am certain that I am not the person you spoke with. Maybe you spoke with Mr. Boss?" "Well, if you're not the person I spoke to, then how do you know my name?" she said, wearing her smuggest "I've got you now" face. "I'm one of your students. I've been going to the high school you teach at for 4 years. If you want to cancel your subscription, you have to call the number. I can't cancel it for you." This obviously wasn't what she wanted to hear. She got really calm for a second and looked at me in the eyes and said, "You think you're really smart, don't you?" before throwing the paper at me and turning around to waddle back up the driveway with her granny panties riding up her 45-year-old butt crack. I called my boss when I got home to tell him what happened, and that she wanted her subscription canceled. He told me that when he had called to fire her daughter, Karen had picked up the phone and screamed the same thing at him, and that he had also told her that she needed to call the subscription line if she wanted her service canceled, and that the teenage paperboy could not cancel the subscription for her. He also said that when Karen's daughter accepted the job, her mom told her that she would be away every second weekend at her father's and would not be able to deliver the Saturday and Sunday papers, and that her mom would deliver them. The next Saturday, I received an updated subscription list and checked if her address was still on it. It was meaning that she still hadn't called the line to cancel, so I had no choice but to keep delivering the paper. This continued for a few more months until I was finally able to convince my boss to cancel her paper due to non-payment. One morning on a weekday, I accidentally slept in until about 4:30 a.m., which meant I had to rush to get them all delivered before 6:30, which is the cutoff time before a paper can be considered late. I deliver Karen's paper around 6:15, which once again is near the end of my route. This time, Karen comes running out, wearing pants this time, and starts yelling at me about how the paper is late and that she is going to call the paper and get me fired, just like they did to her daughter, for being a little late one time. I tried to explain that her paper, while arriving a little later than I normally deliver it, is still not past the cutoff time, and that paper is only guaranteed to be in her mailbox before 6:30, and she, of course, in typical Karen fashion, was having none of it. "You can't talk your way out of this one. You're going to be so fired." And she runs back into the house laughing to herself. About 2 hours later, I am sitting in class waiting for first period to start, and who should walk in to teach the class that day but Miss Karen. She has barely taken 2 steps into the class when she spots me and begins shaking her finger in my direction. "Nah, no, not you. You go to the office now." My entire class is baffled for 2 reasons. The first reason being that was a pretty good kid and didn't get in trouble often, and the second reason being that it happened so quickly after her walking into the room that I couldn't have even had the time to misbehave in any way, shape, or form. I arrive at the principal's office and check in with the secretary. She asks why I was in the office and not in class. "Look, Miss Nice Secretary, I know every kid who gets sent to the office probably says this, but I honestly didn't do anything wrong." I then explain what happened between myself and Karen earlier concerning the paper route, and that this was about something that happened outside of school, during non-school hours. She looks at me slightly confused, and then she nods at another girl sitting in the waiting room and asks if I know who she is. I didn't. I had never seen her before. She was a pretty girl, maybe 2 years younger than me, with short bleach blonde hair, wearing a band tee with the sleeves cut off, and what had to be at least 10 bracelets on each wrist. I can't remember the band, but it was probably some 90s punk band. The fact that she had been crying was obvious. Her eye makeup had been running, and her face was red. I was sent to sit with her in the waiting area. She was sat on the furthest right, with 2 seats to her left. I followed urinal etiquette and took the seat on the left. As we sat there waiting to speak to the principal, she would periodically play with her bracelets and rings, which is how I caught a glimpse of the fresh purple bruise around her wrist. The principal's door opens, and the secretary whispers something to him, which causes him to glance at me. "Mr. Gregg, could you come in here, please?" Now pretty girl's eyes light up with recognition as if she knows who I am. And it's at this point my foolish teenage self realizes that there is something bigger going on than me being kicked out of physics before the class even starts. The principal asks me what happened, and I explain to the best of my ability what had happened that morning. He thanked me and asked me to have a seat again. When I came out, the girl was gone. The principal asked the secretary if there was another teacher available with a free period. She said yes. "Miss Math teacher is free right now. Should I page her?" "Yes, please." The math teacher escorts me back to class and tells Miss Karen that she needs to go to the principal's office. We spend the rest of the class with a free period. I never say Miss Karen again, and as far as I knew, that was the end of the story. Until a few years later, pretty girl ended up dating one of my friends, and I finally got to hear the rest of the story. Pretty girl was Karen's daughter, and her parents were getting a divorce. Karen was a drunk. Apparently, she had been the one to get her daughter the paper route, because she thought having that job would mean her daughter would have to be at her house every night and never at her father's. Pretty girl had tried the paper route and living with her mom for a while, but being the mean drunk that she was, shit deteriorated pretty quickly, and pretty girl wanted to go stay with her dad. When she did, there was no one to deliver that papers, and that's why she was fired. Not because they were a little late, but because around 50 newspapers had not been delivered several days in a row. Without the paper job, Karen had lost her imagined bargaining chip and was pissed, which is why she decided I was public school enemy number 1. Even though all I had done was accept more work. She thought getting me fired from a paper route I had been doing without complaint for 3 years would mean that her daughter would get the job back again. She had called the paper to complain about me, and despite them having probably told her that her paper was not late, she decided to drive over to pretty girl's dad's house and give her the good news that she was getting her job back, and give her a lift to school. Pretty girl had told her mom that she did not want the job or the lift, and she was not supposed to come over when her dad was not there. Karen didn't like that and dragged Pretty girl by her arm to the car. Pretty girl went straight to the office when classes started and asked them to call her dad. He had picked her up while she was in the principal's office. Apparently, what I told the principal was enough to corroborate Pretty girl's story, which gave the principal what he needed to speak to the union and have her removed from my school's roster until Pretty girl had graduated. That morning's event had also been a deciding factor in her dad get full custody. This time, Karen did not get the kids. What do you mean non-payments were taken out of your paycheck? This cannot be legal. Edit. Also, what do you mean non-payment didn't result in cancellation? How can that work? The newspaper is apparently fine if the customers don't pay because their paper delivery teenagers are paying for it instead. Till that the newspaper delivery industry is shady AF. I almost want to lead a reform campaign. We had to collect the money, then give the paper their portion of the money. If people refused to pay, the amount I was obliged to pay the paper did not change. Imagine being such a worthless, miserable drunk piece of shit grown adult that you take amusement in getting a teenager fired from their first job over a paper that wasn't late, and using that paper route to try and force her own daughter to not see her father. Shitty person, shitty parenting, shitty attitude. Not to mention abusing your authority as a teacher as a means of revenge against a teen. So wait, if she didn't get the kids, did we win? Yes, we won. Daughter got away from abusive mom. Paper delivery person, OP, got to keep their route. School got rid of a shitty, vindictive person who shouldn't have been working with kids. And Karen had to deal with her actions, hopefully, but probably not. She's probably still a sorry excuse. People like her don't tend to change much. They just grow more miserable and blame it on everyone else. U/derpyalurp45, we won. The good guys finally won one. Just a reminder, spread love and light to keep up the good fight. I like that you call her pretty girl. Being the child of an abusive parent, she probably does not feel very pretty very often. I hope she becomes part of your friend group. Typical Karen, makes a fuss over everything and doesn't win. Parents not letting me move out, 23F, need advice. Currently 23F, just newly graduated. I've been living with roommates the past few years, and it's been hard for my mental health moving back in with family. They constantly want to know what I'm doing, where I am, track my location, etc., and will get upset if I go out too much. For context, I just finished school 2 weeks ago and have been hanging out with friends / my boyfriend on the weekends only. I feel like I also walk on eggshells in the house, as my mom has anger problems, and every few weeks her and my dad will have a screaming match / throw things at each other, etc. And whenever that isn't happening, they make snide remarks / insults at each other. So it's just a matter of time waiting for the next fight to happen. I have about $6K in savings, and my BF offered to let me move in with him for 1,250 Canadian dollars per month. I'll be studying for my licensure exam for the next 3 months while working full-time to ensure my savings don't deplete too fast. My parents are very against this as they think moving in prior to marriage is wrong, and they say I can't take care of myself / I'm not good at housework, so he won't want me because I'm useless / I should be financially independent as a woman first. My parents hate that I'd be giving money to his family, as his mom owns the condo he rents, and they're guilt-tripping me into staying, saying things like they're living off savings / they're broke. Family comes first, and I should to give away my hard-earned money to some other person to help pay off their mortgage. My dad doesn't have a good earning job, and my mom is a som who takes care of the house. They didn't put a single cent towards my education, other than my dad paying gas to drive me home sometimes during school breaks and helping me move out of my university house. But they're saying because I'm family and they spend a lot of money raising me, I need to get a job soon and put that money towards the family to help. They will be charging me market rent or just below once I get a nursing job. I just want to hear some unbiased opinions if it's okay for me to move out. I know my parents are toxic, but it's also hard to differentiate what's right and wrong because this is how I was raised. TDLR. Is it a good idea for me to move out? Parents are saying no, but my mental health is suffering. You are an adult not bound by the social norms your parents try to dictate. You are beginning the journey of adulthood and independence. It's not easy at first, but you have your whole life ahead of you. It's yours to live, not theirs. Every new journey begins with a single step. What will yours be? I say step number 1 is turning GPS off on your phone. An actually loving and supportive family would encourage you to succeed, not try to keep you trapped and miserable. They think they're giving me lots of freedom because they've let me sleep over at my boyfriend's every weekend for the past month and haven't bothered me unless they needed me for lunch or dinner. But I think they're hitting their limit because they keep making snide remarks about how I'm not motivated to study and earn money and how I go out too much and have neglected my studying. It makes me so uneasy because I feel like one moment they're okay, the next they're not, which puts me on edge. But they haven't actually yelled at me or restricted any of my activities, so I'm not really sure if my feelings are valid or not. Honey, you are 23 years old, a full-grown adult. You don't need their permission. The natural order of things is that you're supposed to grow up and be independent. I'm really sorry that your parents are trying to guilt you, but they chose to have a child. It is very literally their job to raise you into adulthood. Spread your wings. You deserve it. Move in with your boyfriend, as there is a good chance that when you move out, and since you will no longer be paying your controlling parents, your mother will have to get a job to help pay bills. I also suggest going LC with your parents once you move out, and make sure they have zero access to any of your accounts. It's my birthday, not yours. I was born on Mother's Day. When I say this, people always comment, "Oh, what a wonderful gift for your mother." But I cringe when they do. My mother is narcissistic and acts like a child. If she's not happy, she makes sure everyone else in the family isn't either. She can do no wrong and plays the victim when provided with proof. So to me, with being born on Mother's Day, I took away her day. I was a burden rather than a gift. At least, that's how it felt like growing up. My partner and I invited my parents to play at Topgolf so they could be here to celebrate my birthday. They live an hour and a half away from us. Initially, I wouldn't have invited them to do anything, but I want to have my books back with me now that I live closer. And honestly, going back into my childhood home is triggering. So with them coming, I get my books and maybe dinner paid. Overall, things were going well. Surprisingly, no fights or politically charged conversations. When we started playing, though, my parents could not grasp how you had to change names before taking a golf ball. My mom also didn't know how to properly get the ball to come out and would manage to have multiple balls come out on her turn. That said, she won a lot. As time started running out, my partner and I started taking more balls out to basically catch up our turns with my parents. My mom saw this and ended up doing the same thing. I had to tell her to stop because it's pretty obvious what we were doing. When it was my turn again, there was about 2 minutes left. My dad and partner told me to run out the clock by hitting as much as I want, but my mom was right behind me as I was hitting, waiting for her turn. I had to remind her it was my birthday, not hers, and to wait her turn. It's frustrating because this is a very common theme in my life where she has to be the one treated specially, no one else. And she has very little awareness for letting anyone else to be put first because she demands it all the time. Something minor, and she's obviously done worse things, but just need to rant about this. Rant heard. Entitled parents rarely change. Here's hoping yours do. Yeah, one of the things I've been learning in therapy is that based on what my parents have actively told me, they will never change. They don't care that changing means having a closer relationship with us. They just don't want to do it. Regarding your mother's attitude towards your birth date, our daughter was born on a Monday, between Mother's Day and my birthday. I haven't had a birthday since. I figure I am not going to steal my daughter's thunder. A little kid would not understand, is my take. Our daughter is an adult now, and in a few years will be my 65th. Until then, I am not having a birthday. My point being, not all parents are like your mother. Some of us understand how kids feel. Interestingly enough, my brother was born on my dad's birthday. I've never seen my dad make a big deal about it and always put my brother's celebration first, or they did it jointly. Even as an adult, my brother celebrates with him. My dad always tells the story of how he kept encouraging my mom to give birth before it almost changed to the next day since he wanted them to be the same. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you in the next video.